Good morning on this Friday, December 16th. President Obama speaking on the suspected Russian hacking of the U.S. election. He did an interview with NPR and vows a U.S. reprisal for all of this. He says we need to take action, and we will. We're also reading this morning about possible further economic sanctions against Russia, or maybe some kind of response in cyberspace. So our question for you today is, what should the U.S. be doing about this alleged or suspected Russian hacking? Republicans call this number 202-748-8001, Democrats 748-8000, and Independents 202-748-8002 is your number. And if not by phone, you can weigh in via social media. Our Twitter handle is C-SPAN WJ, or you can post a comment at facebook.com/C-SPAN. Again, this was an interview with NPR that's airing this morning and was posted last night at their website. Here's the headline: "We need to take action, and we will," about all of this. The piece that goes with it reminds us that the U.S. intelligence officials have concluded that hackers working for Russia hacked into the DNC's computer network, as well as the private email of John Podesta, a top advisor to Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton. With the question of Russia's ultimate motivation for the hack becoming increasingly divisive, the president was careful not to endorse a CIA assessment reported by NPR and other outlets that asserts Russia's goal was to elect Trump. Here's a brief one-minute piece of that interview at NPR, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes. We'll move on and talk about some of the other reporting first on all of this. Here's the New York Times headline. As we mentioned, Obama vows U.S. reprisal for Moscow's meddling. They write here that the White House strongly suggested before the election that Mr. Obama would make use of sanctions authority for the cyber attacks that he had given to himself by executive order. But he did not, in part out of concern that action before the election could lead to an escalated conflict. If Mr. Obama invokes sanctions on Russian individuals or organizations, Mr. Trump could reverse them. But that would be politically difficult, they write, as his critics argue that he is blind to Russian behavior. On Thursday, the pressure grew on Mr. Trump in Congress for him to acknowledge intelligence agencies' conclusions that Russia was behind the hacking, but aides said that was all but impossible before the Electoral College convenes on Monday to formalize his victory. So, with all of that, we will hear from the president now.
I think there is no doubt that when any foreign government tries to impact the integrity of our elections, that we need to take action, and we will, at a time and place of our own choosing. Some of it may be explicit and publicized, some of it may not be. But Mr. Putin is well aware of my feelings about this because I spoke to him directly about it. And there is among the big powers, there has been a traditional understanding of that everybody's trying to gather intelligence on everybody else. It's no secret that Russian intelligence officers or Chinese or, for that matter, Israeli or British or other intelligence agencies, that their job is to get insight into the workings of other countries that they're not reading in the newspapers every day. There's a difference between that and the kind of malicious cyber attacks that steal trade secrets or engage in industrial espionage, something that we've seen the Chinese do. And there's a difference between that and activating intelligence in a way that's designed to influence elections.
That full interview on the NPR website this morning. Here's a tweet by Donald Trump from yesterday. He says about all this, if Russia or some other entity was hacking, why did the White House wait so long to act? Why did they only complain after Hillary lost. The New York Times piece speaks a little bit more about Donald Trump. He has said privately in recent days that he believes there are people in the CIA who are out to get him and are working to delegitimize his presidency, according to people briefed on the conversations who described them on the condition of anonymity. The president-elect's suspicions have been stoked by the efforts of a group of Democratic electors, as well as one Republican who called this week for an intelligence briefing on the Russian hacking, raising prospects for that votes in the Electoral College might be changed. Our first call this morning is from Scott in Plainville, Kansas this morning. Scott, you there?
Yes.
Go right ahead, sir. Well, what do you make of this whole story and what the U.S. response should be?
Well, I think these people have no idea of what's going on, and Russia is a convenient target. We've got people running around saying, well, this was done, that was done. Well, we need to know exactly what happened. I don't think anybody knows. Why couldn't it have been the Israelis for what President Obama did 2 years ago in their elections? Why couldn't it be the Germans for what he did to Angela Merkel? You know, you got too many people running around talking instead of looking. And as far as the press, well, we all know where they stand. So why should we even give this any credence? I mean, who are you going to believe? I don't know who to believe anymore. So this administration has flubbed up just about everything they've ever touched.
All right, Scott, thank you for calling this morning. We have Kathy on the line from here in Washington, D.C. Good morning to you, Kathy. What do you make of all this?
Well, what I make of it, what I think is really important is that the American people try to pay attention to what seems to be happening, how President Obama keeps trying to downplay this. We have a man in office who's sympathetic to Putin. We have a man in office now who has refused to give up his business ties. We have a man in office now who's neo-fascist. I think we should wake up. That's my only comment. It's very scary to me. Thank you.
All right, and we have Don calling in this Friday from Ashland, Kentucky. Don, welcome to you.
Thank you. It's good to be on this morning.
Good to have you.
I think the situation with the Russian hacking is just an excuse. They've had all kinds of excuses out there for the reasons that Hillary lost. And it's been a horrible 8 years of Barack Obama, and I think the country is just fed up with the direction it's been going, and it's fed up with the situation of this president and his performance in office, and they certainly didn't want 8 more years of trying to continue his programs. People are looking to turn America around. All this political correctness that's run wild under Obama here, where people are go out and take to the streets and loot, burn, riot, shoot the police, all the things he's done to Israel and other countries. I think people's fed up with it, and I don't think the Russians are involved in this. This is just a bunch of sore losers trying to come up with a good excuse.
All right, thank you for calling, Don. We'll look to get more of your calls in the next couple of minutes here. A little bit more from the publications, though. This is at thehill.com. Obama, we need to take action in response to the Russian hacking. They point out here that in the week since the intelligence report, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have called for further investigations and briefings. On Thursday, Nancy Pelosi, the House Minority Leader, ramped up her calls for an independent bipartisan probe into Russia's hacking. Republican leaders, they write, however, are signaling that they will limit any investigations to the Intelligence Committee. Back to the New York Times piece, it remains to be seen whether Mr. Trump's stated doubts about Russia's involvement will subside after Monday's Electoral College vote. He and his allies have been concerned that the reports of Russian hacking have been intended to peel away votes from him, although even Democrats have not gone so far as to say the election was illegitimate. We go to Stan now. Stan is calling from Verona, New York. Welcome to the program, Stan.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
There's really just one thing that really matters in this whole thing, and maybe something secondary here that should be looked at. But first of all, the information that was hacked, as they say, was that information actually valid? Was it real? Was it true? Because that's what the American people cast their votes on. Now, from what I've seen and heard so far, it looks to me that it was. Now, the second thing here is I keep hearing people talking about the CIA and this being a soft coup to steal the election. Well, if there was anybody that you could pick to do something like that, your CIA would be the best choice. Just ask the people down in South America, because this whole thing stinks to high heaven, and I don't trust any of them, including Donald Trump. But I'll tell you right now, I really think that at the end of the day, this information is true. Just take a look at Hillary Clinton and what she's gotten away with so far. That's all you need to do. Thank you.
All right, on to James now, Dumfries, Virginia. Hello, James.
Yeah, good morning. First of all, let me just thank C-SPAN for what they do each day. But look, the comment that I have is really simple, but I like to complete my thought.
Sure.
The bottom line is this. If the Electoral College makes a decision not to go with Trump, what does that mean? In our history, I don't think that ever happened. So, as far as illegitimizing the presidency for Trump, it was illegitimized when he went down that elevator and cast his vote into the election, because he really wasn't qualified to be the president of the United States. However, neither here nor there. Now, when it comes to the hacking, I truly believe, yes, Russia did have some input into that. Okay, however, you got to look back at what Donald Trump has said all throughout his presidency. Yeah, Russia, please go ahead and hack us. All right, make sure you get all the Hillary. Now, as far as Hillary, I don't think too much of her either, because both of them, to me, are conspiracy theories. But what do we do now? That's the key to it. Because as far as, I'm concerned, give Donald Trump, now I'm not for him, but give him a chance now. Because now that he sees what it's going to take to be the president, maybe if we keep him and hold him to all the things that he said that he would do for America and not against America, meaning deporting all of these immigrants and things of this nature, build your wall. We need security. But the bottom line, people got to understand, we as taxpayers are going to pay for that wall that he builds. So that's my comment.
All right, James, appreciate you calling this morning. We expect to hear more of this later today from the president. He'll be holding a news conference before he and his family leave for vacation, Christmas vacation in Hawaii. This news conference is at 2:15 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll have it right here on C-SPAN. We will take more of your calls after that news conference, and if you miss it today, you can watch it at cspan.org or probably during the 8 o'clock hour this evening on C-SPAN as far as a replay goes. Bit of a war of words over all of this yesterday. Here is Josh Earnest, the White House press secretary, followed by Donald Trump.
Well, first of all, it's just a fact. You all have it on tape that the Republican nominee for president was encouraging Russia to hack his opponent because he believed that that would help his campaign. That's not a controversial statement. I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I am trying to acknowledge a basic fact. And all of you saw it. This is not in dispute. Now, I recognize that the defense from the Trump campaign is that he was joking. I don't think anybody at the White House thinks it's funny that an adversary of the United States engaged in malicious cyber activity to destabilize our democracy.
Although this foolish guy, Josh Earnest, I don't know if he's talking to President Obama. You know, having the right press secretary is so important because he is so bad the way he delivers a message. He can deliver a positive message and it sounds bad. He could say, ladies and gentlemen, today we have totally defeated ISIS, and it wouldn't sound good, okay? All right? I have a feeling they won't be saying it, but I know we will be saying it. But the president's very positive, but he's not positive. And I mean, maybe he's getting his orders from somebody else. Does that make sense? Could that be possible?
And Donald Trump will be out again today, so we look forward to hearing from him. It's an Orlando, Florida victory rally. He'll be there with Vice President-elect Mike Pence at the Central Florida Fairgrounds. So watch that at 7 o'clock Eastern here on this network. And James has been hanging on from Dumfries, Virginia. Good morning to you, James.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Okay. Listen, a couple of comments. And I would ask that you allow me to kind of finish my thoughts here. But as far as Donald Trump, all right, you know, I feel for America now. The reason I say that very quickly here is this. If you go back, and it's all recorded, just like the press secretary said, it's all on tape. Okay, and how can you sit up there and joke about the most important position probably on the face of this earth, and you joke about allowing our adversary to hack us, all right, talk about the press secretary, talk about all the things, and lie about everything he said? Because if you look at, one last comment, if you look at what he said about Obamacare, and he's reeling it back now, saying that, well, I should keep, all right, the allowing, you know, children to stay on your insurance until you're 26, and for those with pre-existing, all right, pre-existing health issues to stay, you know, on Obamacare. If you keep those two, that is Obamacare. So the thing about it is this: he lied to the whole United States of America, but I give him credit for this. He was able to lie and make that lie seem like the truth, because people were hating on not on democracy, but they were hating Congress and Washington so bad that they said, well, look, anything is better than what's going on right now. But we're going to find out later on that is not true.
At Twitter this morning, Mylan Burke writes, the only reason, in his view, Democrats are trying to delegitimize Trump with Russia is because Trump tried to delegitimize Obama with birther. Ken, Alexandria, Virginia, you are on the line, Ken.
Good Friday to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, actually, he's you know, I've been in law enforcement for many years, and anytime you have a suspect, you don't have complete information up until that point, but you do have a lead. And again, his comments were very clear about, you know, wanting a foreign, you know, agency to investigate or to you know, to hack into emails, whatever the case, to cause a disturbance. I mean, you know, that's very misleading. That's also propaganda. There's a fine line between propaganda and public relations, and politicians are notorious for it. But, you know, Ryan and a lot of the members, and I'm independent, so, you know, I don't have a dog in the fight, but I do vote with my conscience. But every member of Congress that refused, regardless if they're Democrat or Republican, that refused to work with the president should also have not been reelected. We know the president did his 8 years, but all these members that adamantly refuse to do their job should be replaced, and something else should be brought in. But if there is Russian involvement, you know, it seems like it was certainly encouraged.
All right, moving on to Jesse now, who is in Baltimore. Lots of calls this morning from the D.C. Baltimore area. Go ahead, Jesse. Jesse, are you there?
Oh, yeah. Hello.
Hi, sir.
All right. I was just mentioning that country spies on one another, left or right, and so that's nothing new. But the real thing is, I don't think Hillary really lost anything. I think what took place, I think she probably dodged a bullet for what yet to come. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
And Lisa from Toledo, Ohio. Lisa, what do you think the U.S. response to all of this should be?
I think that they should, well, first of all, good morning.
Good morning.
I think that they should sanction Russia and let them know that we're not going to stand for them to meddle in our elections. And one more quick comment. You know, I'm a Republican, but I really get tired of all this back and forth. They're sent there to do a job, and that's to compromise and do the will of the people. And I think we've gotten to the point, really, where we have term limits on presidents and governors, and I think that they need to start we need to put term limits in, and that way, if they're not doing what they're sent there to do, get them out.
All right. Thoughts of Lisa there. Carol writes at Twitter this morning, bring your retaliation against Russia, Obama. Don't wait or hesitate. Let's see if your word is worth anything. Back to a couple of the other front pages today. Again, the New York Times has a piece on hacking itself, and it points out in the lead story that hurdles for the U.S. Are there in a bid to thwart Russian hackers. They point out that the inquiries are complex. Few options to deter or detain those who strike networks. There's one paragraph toward the bottom of the front page that I want to point out. The U.S. has few options, they write, for responding to such hacks. Russia does not extradite its citizens and has shown that it will not easily be deterred through public shaming. At times, the American authorities have enlisted local police officials to arrest suspects when they leave Russia for a vacation in the Maldives, for example. But more often than not, the FBI and Justice Department investigate and compile accusations and evidence against people who will almost certainly never stand trial. There is also the Wall Street Journal's front page today. They have a lead item that says the RNC security foiled Russian hackers. They say here that Russian hackers tried to penetrate the computer networks of the RNC, the Republican National Committee, using the same techniques that allowed them to infiltrate its Democratic counterpart. This according to U.S. officials who've been briefed on the attempted intrusion. But the intruders failed to get past security defenses for the RNC's computer networks, the official said, and people close to the probe said it indicated a less aggressive and much less persistent effort by Russian intelligence to hack the Republican group than the DNC. Only a single email account linked to a long-departed RNC staffer was targeted. That's the lead item this morning in the Wall Street Journal. We go to Buffalo, New York now. It's Desiree. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for calling. What are your thoughts on a U.S. response to this?
Well, our response, first, I think President-elect Trump refused to acknowledge is because he idolized Putin so much. And I also feel that he will use the office for his personal monetary gain the same way Putin does his. So, and also one quick comment, our IT team should really get on their job and protect our servers there in the government. I don't understand how they got in anyway. That should be number one priority.
Thank you for calling, Desiree. Bob is on the line now from Bradenton, Florida. Hey, Bob.
Hey, how you doing today?
Doing fine. How about you?
I'm doing great. I was just wondering, they get all this information about, they say they're getting this information about the Russian hackers, but yet there's been no real proof about it. Just like, can you believe this? Just like, can you believe the story about the weapons of mass destruction? It all boils down to the same thing. If Hillary Clinton wasn't out there doing all this dirty stuff, then there wouldn't be all this dirty laundry coming up about it.
All right, that was Bob. Ken is calling now from Washington, D.C. Good morning to you, Ken.
Hey, good morning. My thought is that I believe that our intelligence community, they need to disable Russia's ability to attack us.
How should they do it, Ken?
Give them a virus. Send a virus their way that they can't disable. I just can't believe we aren't smart enough to do something like that. And on top, and lastly, my last comment, I don't believe that the people that are supporting Donald Trump are as stupid as they appear. I think they're at these rallies and they're getting all pumped up and they're just clapping along. They're having a good time. They're not that dumb, because at the end of the day, let's say their water gets poisoned in Flint, Michigan, or the water gets poisoned in West Virginia, or oil gets dumped on the ground in Alabama or Georgia. You know what they're going to do? They're going to call FEMA. They're going to call for the federal government, the one that they want to be so small, to come help them. They're not that dumb. But that's all I have.
Okay, thanks for calling. Westchester, PA on the line now. Is it Olu?
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good to have you. Go ahead. What are your thoughts on this whole story of the suspected Russian hacking, and what should the U.S. response be, if any?
Yes. My thought is that if you look at what is going on around the world, for the past 2 years or 3 years or so, we Americans, we've been destabilizing Russia, so to say, in terms of their economy. We've been really hammering them with sanctions. So to me, the Russians are just retaliating. It's a tit-for-tat kind of deal. So we affect their economy, try to drive their economy to the ground, and they find a way to affect our own democracy. So they are just hitting back at us for what we did to them. So how are we going to stop this? We're just going to get into a cycle. I hear people saying we should retaliate. So we retaliate now, and then they retaliate again. So this is not going to stop. Thank you.
Thank you for calling, Olu. To Politico, Trump renews complaints of Russian hacking reports. The president-elect once again complained about reports of Russian cyber attacks against the U.S. election that he won last month, recalling that one of those hacking efforts yielded an email showing Hillary Clinton had received a Democratic primary question, debate question in advance. So he tweeted about 6 o'clock this morning, they write, "Are we talking about the same cyber attack where it was revealed that the head of the DNC illegally gave Hillary questions to the debate?" Trump, they write, and his team have complained loudly in recent days about the renewed scrutiny that cyber attacks from Russia against American political targets have received. The president-elect has refused to concede the assessment of all 17 federal intelligence agencies that Russia was behind the attack, and he has taken particular exception, they write, to the reported assessment of the CIA that those Russian efforts were specifically intended to benefit his candidacy and help install him as the next president. Back to calls here. Janet from Olathe, Kansas. Thank you for waiting.
Yes, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I want to say that there has been no love lost between Obama and Putin, and this is just another one of Obama's and Hillary's smoke screens. You got to blame something on his failed presidency. He's been the worst president that we have had in my 63 years that I can remember. He's been a race baiter. He's done everything that he can to divide this country, and he continues, and he will continue on until his last day in office. And it is time for him to be gone. He is trying to get us in a war with Russia. We don't want to go there. Who's to say that China isn't behind this? And, you know, there's no substantial proof to any of this. So this is all just some more rhetoric coming out of the president and Obama's mouth and Hillary Clinton. And it's time for it to stop and let Trump become the president of the United States with the backing of the people who voted for him. You know, it is what it is, and they're just going to have to get over it. That's all.
Thanks for calling. Stella asks this. Ask the callers why Obama isn't concerned about the emails that Hillary may have hacked, missing thousands of them, destroying hard drives. Why? They ask here. John Podesta, who served as chair of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, has written an op-ed that's getting attention this morning. It's in the Washington Post. We'll read just a little bit from it before we go back to calls. The headline says that something is deeply broken at the FBI. Mr. Podesta says the more we learn about the Russian plot to sabotage Hillary Clinton's campaign and elect Donald Trump, that's how he puts it, and the failure of the FBI to adequately respond, the more shocking the whole thing gets. The former acting director of the CIA has called the Russian cyber attack the political equivalent of 9/11. Just as after the real 9/11, Mr. Podesta writes, we need a robust, independent investigation into what went wrong inside the government and how to better protect our country in the future. What he says here is that what takes this from baffling to downright infuriating is that at nearly the exact same time that no one at the FBI could be bothered to drive 10 minutes to raise the alarm at DNC headquarters, Two agents accompanied by attorneys from Justice were in Denver visiting a tech firm that had helped maintain Clinton's email server, comparing the FBI's massive response to the overblown email scandal with the seemingly lackadaisical response to the very real Russian plot to subvert a national election shows that something is deeply broken at the FBI. That's John Podesta, who served as the chairman, of course, of Hillary Clinton's campaign. WashingtonPost.com is the place to read that. And Jennifer is calling from Colorado now. Jennifer is in Grand Junction. Good morning.
Joe, a little bit of a sore throat here, so please bear with me.
Sure.
When the election or the pre-election was going on, we kept hearing all this stuff, and a lot of it was just nonsense, I felt. And but we thought, if we can just get through this, we'll have an end to it all, and then we can work on our country again. Well, of course, then what happened happened. And, it was all about, blaming Hillary for hacks and this and that. But then when this all comes out about Mr. Trump, everybody just kind of shoves it under the rug, looks the other way, it seems to me. It looks shady. I try to read people. I watch that. I do advertising and stuff. And it's shady, and it's embarrassing. And I watched him speak tonight, and he was saying the same old thing over and over again. He's yet to show any tax information. And when Capone did stuff with the tax, they put him in prison. And when Trump did it, we made him president. I can't understand. I believe that Barack Obama was the best president we've ever had. I'm 67 years old. Doesn't make me great or, anything like that. But I've seen a few things happen. And I watched what he did, how well-spoken he was, and the respect that he didn't have to demand. People gave it to him because he was the kind of person that he is, a good spokesperson for the United States. And, anybody can see, any blind person can see what kind of furor that Trump brought with him. And, every country just about in the world got on their soapbox and said, hey, don't let this happen. Don't let this happen. We don't like you anymore if this happens. And so now that it's happened and there's so much turmoil, Trump comes out with things like, he believes in torture. He thinks women should be punished in some way for having abortions and all these, maniacal things that I just can't imagine. I try not to listen, but you can't help yourself. And to think that we're going to try not to listen to our government for the next 4 years is, to me, tragic. I enjoy government. I enjoy politics. And when you see this type of thing happening, it's like an example for our children and for the rest of the world. That's pretty bad. It's very sad, too, because we were great until this election was over. And now I feel like we've got something to make up.
Jennifer, thank you for calling this morning. I want to get some other voices in, including Virginia Texan on Twitter. Ain't any Russian hacking. The failed Barack Hussein Obama and the Democrats are just sore losers, they write here. And David is on the line now from Monticello, Georgia. Good morning, David.
Good morning. Thank you for C-SPAN.
Sure. So what do you think about this suspicion of Russia and what the U.S. should do, if anything, in response?
I think really the only person that's called this a suspicion of Russia is Brennan. If you look at what Comey's saying and had conversations with Donald Trump himself, there's no credible evidence of this. That's why the FBI won't get on board with this. He's been run through the rack. Comey's, I feel sorry for the guy, but he's been subject to the Clinton machine, so he's felt that pressure. There is no credible, provable proof that Russia has done this, and Comey sees that. And as far as I can see, you can name 17 alternates. You're not naming anybody. The only person that can be named is Brennan. And he's politicizing this thing just like Eric Holder politicized the Justice Department.
Okay, thank you for calling, David. Sorry, I thought you were finished there. We'll do this for about 10 more minutes and work in some other news. Some more news about Donald Trump this morning. Washington Times. Democrats are putting out a bill to force Mr. Trump to divest his business empire. They announced legislation Thursday to force the president-elect to divest his massive business empire as they thought to go on offense against the man who confounded them during the election. So they write that a handful of liberal Senate Democrats, including Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, said they'll introduce a bill early next month when Congress convenes, just ahead of the inauguration. Their bill came on the same day that Mr. Trump had initially promised to explain how he would extricate himself from his real estate and golf course holdings. And that's a news conference that was supposed to happen yesterday, but did not. USA Today, in the meantime, decides to put this on its front page up at the top. The headline says, Trump's soft spot, rich Russians. They write that Donald Trump's controversial soft spot for Russia is based on decades of courting wealthy Russians to buy condos in his luxury high-rises and invest in his other real estate ventures. A close look at his business dealings reveals. Trump first traveled to Moscow in the 1980s to discuss renovating hotels there. After several bankruptcies made it hard to raise money in the USA for his high-end hotel and condo projects since the 90s, Trump and later his children traveled to Moscow to talk deals and attract buyers, they write here. This is according to interviews with people who have worked with Trump over the years and according to news accounts. They show far greater commercial ties between Trump and Russia than generally known. That's the lead item this Friday morning at USA Today. Freddie has been hanging on from Los Angeles. Early morning there, Freddie. Thank you for joining us.
As usual, thank you very much for having C-SPAN. My comment basically is just this. The first time any kind of story like this originated in my lifetime that I can remember was the Pentagon Papers. The Pentagon Papers came out, the court ruled in favor of the New York Times to publish it, and everyone says in the media what a great, glorious victory for freedom of speech and freedom of press. And they did the same thing with Silkwood, with a nuclear power plant. Great news-breaking story. We got rid of these secrets. But also when the secrets started going against liberal Democrats, then it's a problem. It's a problem with the leaks with Russia, supposedly. By the way, I don't necessarily believe that's true. It happened with Monica Lewinsky and the leak there, and the adversary, the whistleblowers that brought that to light. Make up your mind, liberals. You believe in security leaks or you don't believe in security leaks. You can't have it both ways. I just think the truth was revealed with this hacking, no matter who did it. And the main story here that everyone likes to ignore is the unethical behavior of the DNC. That's the story, not the hacks. Anyway, thank you for your time.
All right, Freddie, let's move on to Louise then in Chicago. Chicago, what do you have to say, Louise?
First, I would like to say people should call in and stop all this complaining and come up with some good ideas. We have too many problems. They need to come up with suggestions and stop this complaining. My idea for the security of the United States against this hacking with Russia or whomever is that we need to get rid of these floppy disks in Washington and all this old stuff that we're trying to work with in the modern world. We need to set up some new systems for hacking, no matter what kind of hacking it is. If it's elections, bank accounts, we've heard about hacking for over a year now, about hack. We need to set up new administration that's going to go in there and build, if it takes Gates or whomever he met with, all of these tech people, to build an area where we can have a secure security system and know what's going on with our emails and accounts. And I'm sure they're going to do that when they get in there. Trump and his administration may not be liked, but they're very smart. And when they get in, they're going to set up some area for this security, and we're not going to have all this hacking. So relax and come up with some ideas. Happy New Year, and thank you.
Thank you for calling. Let's hear from Helen in Cheverly, Maryland. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for your show.
You bet.
I watch you every day.
That's so great to hear.
Thank you. I appreciate the opinions coming in. A lot of them I do not agree with, but then we all have the freedom of speech to say whatever we choose. What I'm going to say is I do believe Russia is involved. I have did all of my studying on people who are involved in the cabinet that Donald Trump is setting up. These people have close ties with Russia. I am still really saddened by the fact that Donald Trump won't even step back and say, well, let us take a look for the sake of our country. These people are going to, Donald Trump is including all of his family, trying to include all of his family. We cannot afford Donald Trump as a president. Even if he was my president, I'm okay with that. I've had Nixon and other bad presidents. I'm an older lady. But the problem is we can't afford to pay the taxes out to protect him and all of his various venues around the world. It would be the taxpayer money going there. If you look at Donald Trump, he's told you what he's doing. He said he is 5-time Brexits. We look at the person for the Secretary of State, how involved he is with Russia and Exxon. And then you look at Paul Manafort. You look at Nigel Farage. You look at Boris Johnson. Look around you, people. All you have to do is see what is going on. And we don't want anyone bringing our country down for money. We are a great nation already, and we need to stay that way. Thank you for the opportunity to have my say.
Thank you, Helen, for calling. More Donald Trump-related headlines. New York Times, Trump picks lawyer as ambassador to Israel, who is aligned with Israel's far right. They write that David Friedman, a bankruptcy lawyer aligned with the Israeli far right, has been named nominee to ambassador to Israel, elevating a campaign advisor who has questioned the need for a two-state solution and has likened left-leaning Jews in America to the Jews who aided the Nazis in the Holocaust. Back to the Washington Times. They have a story about the Border Patrol marking its worst November from families. Demands on U.S. entry strain system. The Border Patrol nabbed more than 15,000 illegal immigrants traveling as families on the southwest border in November, a massive increase, they write, that marks the worst November on record and second worst overall. The statistics were released yesterday. The number of kids traveling without parents also ticked up, topping 7,000 for the month, but it's the surge of families that is straining the Border Patrol and testing the Obama administration's resolve. That's in the Washington Times. Pismo Beach, California, welcome. Ellen is on the line. Hi there. Good morning.
Good morning. Excuse me. It came out in the news that the White House had known about attempted hacking from Russia back in 2015. So I'm a little puzzled as to why all this chaos is coming up all of a sudden, and now after the election, and with this administration has been so inefficient and so wasteful, and that the Pentagon, like the previous caller said, in many departments is still using floppy disk. Surely something could have been done. So this just seems like another effort to raise a smokescreen to detract from the content of whatever was released by whomever. Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling. Dion is calling from Rahway, New Jersey. Go ahead, Dion.
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm fine.
Of course, Russia hacked us. They've been our enemy since the Cold War. Putin still has the idea of bringing back the old Soviet Union.
So what should the response
He's never
be?
denounced communism.
Dion?
Yes?
I was going to say, what should the response be then, based on what you're saying?
More sanctions.
Mm-hmm.
More sanctions. I mean, Trump, like Brezhnev used to say, they need to use useful idiots, and Trump fits the bill perfectly. Because the man has no knowledge of foreign affairs whatsoever around the world, and he's dealing with a KGB intelligence agent. I mean, Putin still is Putin. I mean, Trump wouldn't be much more than a used car salesman if his father wasn't rich. I mean, he knows how to smooch people and everything else, but he's not an in-depth thinker. And it shows by the appointments he's making with totally unqualified people.
Thanks for calling, Dion. We have time for another call or two. LA Times reporting this morning that fears of Russia and Trump are driving the European Union leaders to boost their defense budget. There's the story there. Meeting for the first time since the election here in the U.S., the European Union members agreed Thursday to increase their own spending on defense. The friendly overtures by Donald Trump to an expansionist Russia, the way they put it here, and his statements casting doubt on his commitment to the NATO alliance have sent shudders through Europe. The agreement to boost national defense budgets was widely seen as a response to the election and fears that the U.S. may become a less dependable ally. That's in the LA Times. And Dean is calling from Mesa. Arizona. Good morning, Dean.
Good morning.
What do you think, sir?
Well, this hacking situation, a good hacker isn't going to let his hack location be known. A good hacker is going to hack into a Russian computer, let's say, and then hack from that Russian computer, hack into another computer. There's absolutely no way to tell where that hacking came from.
Anything else, Dean?
That'll do it.
All right, thanks. Let's hear from Cindy then in Hollywood, Florida. Hi, Cindy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I live in a district where we had to choose between Debbie Wasserman Schultz and someone else. I can't find anyone, period, that voted for her, not one. I do not believe that Russia hacked, and there's 3 reasons for that. First of all, for 15 years, the basic message is, and without proper evidence, I might add, is go die on somebody else's soil for their oil, whether it be Iraq, the Gulf spill, the pipeline problems. So if you don't go die on somebody else's soil for their oil, you die on your own soil for somebody else's oil, or die on your own soil for your own oil. Either way, that does not uphold the Bill of Rights. Also, in the Affordable Care Act, the massive computer structure was formed, and the reason it comes out at your IRS is so that all of that can go into arresting people and stuff like that. So yesterday, or day before, on one of your shows here on C-SPAN, it was talking about when that was developed, and the Democratic president, who illegally and against the Bill of Rights put that spying on your own people into effect. If you then, through those policies, challenge the people in the world who have been communist much longer than you, and your basic message is we're better communists than you, first of all, go die on somebody else's soil for their oil, you bet Russia would be interested in, and so would China. That's number one. Number two, when you send a basic message that to hell with the founding documents of this country, but we're going to be better Nazis and better communists than you. That's why you have Nazi street spy cameras in our streets, yet that is not the King's Highway decided July 4th, 1776. And yet you took an oath to uphold those documents. Republican or Democrat, it does not matter. This is simply a continuation of that same stupid message. And let's face it, China and Russia have been communist a lot longer than the United States. And when you say basically to them in these messages, we're going to be better communists than you, you know what? If they smacked you, you deserved it. That's number one. Number two, just like you do have the right to declare war, but you only have the right to declare war to defend the people of this country. So without the proper evidence, again, here we go with go die on somebody else's soil for their oil. You know what? If President Trump is going to clean the swamp, it's not the presidential election that was the problem. It's the 573 other elections that is the problem.
All right, Cindy, thank you for calling. We are out of time, and we gave you a good chunk of time there. Thank you, and everybody who called in this segment. We do expect to hear more about this at the President's News Conference today. Again, it's at 2:15 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll have it live here on C-SPAN. Coming up in the next couple segments here on the Washington Journal, a closer